Hey there, welcome to First Five. If you're looking for encouragement, you came to the right place. Let's dive in. So can we get real today? Right after college, I remember experiencing like this deep loneliness, unlike anything I had ever gone through before. You know, I had some friends, but I just didn't see them like I used to in college, and relationships weren't as easy and as natural as they had been for the last 4 years. And so there were times where even when I was with them that I just felt alone. Like I just felt this deep sense of loneliness. And I had also just broken up with somebody at the time, so I'm sure that contributed to some of that loneliness as well. But ultimately, I just felt like I was in this like forced season of isolation. You ever felt like this before? Like deeply lonely? I know that season after college always tends to feel that way, as if like adult relationships are just the hardest things in the world to cultivate, almost as if everything in life is isolating you from people. And it's not something that you wanted, but perhaps it's something you needed. You see, there was a lot of things at that point in my life that God was doing in my heart at that time. A lot of things that he was trying to heal and mend in me. Things that honestly, if I'm being real honest, outside of that season of loneliness, I don't know if I would have ever gotten freedom from those things. It felt like God drew me away from the crowd into a place of uncomfortability so that he could heal what he wanted to heal in my life. And if we're looking at Mark 7, I feel like we see that same chain of events take place. Jesus' ministry is in swing at this point. I mean, he's making Pharisees mad. He's healing people the Jews felt like he shouldn't be healing. And Mark takes us on this like 2 miracle journey through Gentile territory where Jesus does the impossible, but first does the uncomfortable. Let me read it to you. Mark 7:31-35. It says, "Then Jesus left the vicinity of Tyre and went through Sidon down to the Sea of Galilee and into the region of the Decapolis. There some people brought to him a man who was deaf and could hardly talk, and they begged Jesus to place his hand on him. After he took him aside, away from the crowd, Jesus put his fingers into the man's ears. Then he spit and touched the man's tongue. He looked up to heaven and with a deep sigh said to him, 'Ephphatha,' which means be open. At this, the man's ears were opened, his tongue was loosened, and he began to speak plainly." Such a good miracle. The Bible says that a crowd of people brought a man to Jesus to be healed. But in order to heal him, Jesus took him away from the crowd, put his fingers in his ears, gross, and spit and touched the man's tongue, and then he was healed. Even more gross. Like, Jesus drew the man away from the crowd, did some uncomfortable things in order to heal him. And I relate to these events so much because I feel the similarities to my own life story. Maybe it's not a physical healing that I need, but certainly it was an emotional one. It was when I was alone that I felt like I could turn to God. I could truly hear from him. It was when I was drawn away from the crowd and brought to a place of uncomfortability that I felt like healing in my heart and in my life took place. And, you know, most scholars would actually agree that Jesus didn't have to take the man away from the crowd, nor did he need to put his fingers in his ears and spit on his tongue. I mean, he had to because like this is his sovereign will and that's what he chose to do. But in relation to the fact that he's God and they could have just snapped his fingers and he'd be healed, he didn't have to do those things. But Jesus did all of these things for a purpose. You see, everything that Jesus does or allows in our lives has purpose. And you need to hear that today. You may feel lonely. You may feel disregarded. You may feel sad. You may feel broken. But trust me, God is working all things together for the good of those that love him. He's taking this season and everything in it, and he's making much of it. He's intentional in that way. There are no accidents. God does things on purpose, and he's taking even the hard things, even the evil things, and he's turning them for good in your life, for those who love him, for those who believe, for those who are called according to his purpose and plans. Jesus took the deaf and mute man aside to spend intentional time with him, to get away from the noise and the distraction of the crowd, and to earnestly seek his Father on behalf of the man. He took some time away so that he could hear from heaven, so that he could heal this Man, and while the uncomfortability of placing his fingers in the man's ear and spit on the man's tongue felt unnecessary and strange, and I'm sure the man had many questions. I mean, I would have questions if somebody just stuck their fingers in my ears or put their spit on my tongue. Like, I'd be confused, don't you think? Wouldn't you as well? I'm sure the man had so many questions as to why he was having to experience this uncomfortability, just like I'm sure you have so many questions as to why you're experiencing yours. But God displays his sovereignty. God displays his power, his divine otherness, that he is God and no one else can do what he does in those seasons of uncomfortability. And he writes a story with our lives so unique and so authentic that it can't be mistaken that he was the one that healed us. It could never be mistaken that he was the one that healed you, and he healed you for his glory, but also so that others could see his goodness. I know you feel lonely. I know you feel disregarded, but God is cultivating something in you. Trust me, a story is being written so that you can tell it. A healing is being found for his glory and his fame, and it may mean that you have to be taken away from the crowd for a season in order to hear God clearly and receive the healing he longs for you to have. And isn't a bit of uncomfortability worth it if you get the healing that you've always desired? I guarantee you, once the deaf and mute man was cured, he cared far less about what it took to get him there, all right? But God was writing a story in the uncomfortability, and he's doing the same in your life. Listen, today, would you take some time and thank God for the uncomfortable seasons? The seasons of isolation where you have to get alone with him to hear from heaven and receive his healing. Would you thank God today for the seasons of uncomfortability? I really hope that encouraged you today. We'll talk soon.